acquire that and realize that. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq. Now, if we do live a life of ubudiyyah, then what will happen? And so let's see if we can get this to work. So in summary of the whole situation, what is the purpose of life? Ubudiyyah, which we discussed in detail. And then the object of life. So if we'll live a life of ubudiyyah, then what's in it for us? Ultimately, what do we get? We get Allah's pleasure and we get paradise. Muntaha. Allah. And then ultimately, at the very end, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will announce to the lucky people, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us among them, Ya ayyatuha an-nafs al-mutma'inna, irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiya, fadkhuli fi ibadi, wadkhuli jannati. O you soul at peace, nafs al-mutma'in, return to your Lord, pleased and pleasing to Him, enter among my slaves. He didn't say enter among my mu'mineen, my slaves, so who lived a life of slavery here to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then he'll be a free man in the hereafter. Free man, free woman. And if we live like, it's my thing, I'll do it like what I want to do, then be a free man here, you'll be a slave and a prisoner for eternity in the hereafter. So the choice is ours. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq to make the proper one. There was an interesting story. There was a fellow by the name of Bishr al-Hafi. He was a great sheikh in Baghdad. Actually, his name was originally Bishr al-Harith. And he was from the aristocracy of Baghdad. He's a very wealthy fellow, socialite. And he was famous for his night parties. Dancing and music and everything that goes along with that, right? So once he was engaged in his activities, and there was a knock on the door in one of his parties. So there was a knock on the door. So his servant, his female servant, went to the door, and there's this old man at the door. So he asked this girl, this young lady, Ahurran sayyidutki am abdun? Is your master, is he a free man or is he a slave? So what do you mean? Free man. He said, وَلِهَذَا أَرَاهُ وَأَرَاهُ. He said, so I understand. So that's why I see him doing what he's doing. And he left. Now Bishr al-Harith, by the way, he's kind of, seeing that there's something going on between his servant and his. So he goes over and says, so what's the deal? What's going on? What happened? So she tells him, the whole story. This fellow knocked on the door, he asked these questions. She said, well, what did you tell him? I said, he's a free man. Yeah. So it just hit him. So he ran out of the house barefoot. It was a moment, all this moment that I had, prepared for it. And so he runs out of the house, and he catches up with this guy. Back then there were very small little lanes, and finally he catches up with the guy. And he says, well, what did you tell my servant? So he tells the whole story. I asked her, is your master, is he a free man or is he a slave? She said, he's a free man. I said, yeah. So that's why I see him doing what he's doing. So it just hit him, and they say he fell down in the middle of the street in sajda, and he would call out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, La ya Rabbi bal abdun, La ya Rabbi bal abd. No, ya my Rabb, I'm not a free man, I'm a slave. Right? And he had run out of the house barefoot, by the way. So he's known as Bishr al-Hafi. Al-Hafi means the barefoot. So the whole thing is that if we can get this concept right, that we're the slaves of the world. We live a life of submission. It's a short time. It's a few days and nights we pass. My friend here, Yahya, We're old buddies from 73. Yeah. He accepted Islam here in Washington Center. We're all together. He and his mother and his brother and sister. So it was a few years ago, you know.
Minutes ago.
And I want to move on to some others. But what I would like to do is, I would like to just give you an idea of this whole, this whole series, what it's about. Okay, so healthy, meaningful living. So we talk about holistic health, and that's very popular now. You know, holistic health. You know, people go to the gym and they eat good, and what's that all about? Well, it's usually about, you know, attracting the opposite sex. I mean, let's be real. You know, that's usually what it is. You know, when they say live life to the max. Have you ever heard that one? Live life to the max. So what do you mean by that? What do they mean by that? In other words, you know, maximize on the pleasure that we can acquire, you know, in this world. I mean, so how much can you get? So it's really sick, and it's really pitiful, and it's really unfortunate. But our concept of holistic health is quite different. Really holistic, a whole. And so therefore, we see holistic health like this. And so I've kind of made 6 basic large dimensions of human health. Number 1 is spiritual, which is what we're trying to talk about today. Ruhani health. And that's the essence of the human being. As we talked about yesterday, the essence of the human being is what? The ruh. When somebody dies, his body doesn't go anywhere. We say intaqala, you know, he's gone off to Allah's mercy. The body hasn't gone anywhere, the body's right here. What went? The ruh. And that ruh, this is a very amazing thing. What makes the human being so special? So we talked about his aql, his intelligence, his cognition, that's unique for human beings. But there's something else that's extremely unique to the human being. And that is this ruh. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ قُلِ الرُّوحِ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي وَمَا أُوتِيتُ مِنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. So this ruh is an order from Allah. It is a divine order coming from Allah to every human being. Whether you're a mu'min, whether you're a kafir, whether you're, you know, Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or you're Donald Trump or Benjamin Netanyahu, everybody has this ruh in them, which gives them a propensity to be the best of creation. But it's conditional. It's conditional. Not everybody's going to be the best of creation. Some are going to be the worst of creation. But the fact is that the human being, by virtue of being a human being, لَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ, we have given this special ikram, this status to being a human being. And you've got a whole life to get it right, you know, to try and get it right. But every human being has this divine order within this physical skeleton. So this ruh is the primary importance and the primary focus. So the basis of our holistic health is the health of this ruh, the health of this soul. And for many of us, like I was talking about last night, we were totally oblivious to the ruh. And so that whole movement of the 60s, you know, like our hippie culture and all of that, counterculture. So one of the primary focuses is trying to find out about this ruh. How do we nurture that? How do we develop that? How do we develop human connection? So that whole aspect, spiritual health, so we talk a little bit about that. And generally what we do is, in this series, is we have a 3-day total retreat. So we like to actually, like in Jamaat, you know, when you go for 3 days in Jamaat. So we take 3 days and we actually stay, you know, in a place, and preferably it'll be somewhere out where there's a lot of nature, because we like to connect with the nature, and we have a lot of exercise we do in that. And then the next dimension of health is mental health, aqlani, you know. Now, aql, in the Islamic tradition, until very recently, material scientists used to think that all cognition and intelligence, understanding and all of that, was all a function of the brain. But the Quran actually says something different. لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ بِهَا. They have hearts, but they don't think with them. They don't exercise aql with those hearts, which means what? Aql has connection with the heart. Now, actually, in science, they're starting to catch up. And they've realized that actually there is cognition, there is intelligence in the heart. There's intelligence in the gut even. It's not as simple as they thought it was. Well, we've known that for centuries, you know. So this intellectual health, unfortunately, we live in a digital world where we turn off all actual intellectual development and exercise, which has a lot to do with, I think, the high, incidence of Alzheimer's and dementia, various forms of dementia. The mind is a muscle. It's a kind of muscle. And any muscle that you don't use and develop and look after and exercise, it's going to go into atrophy, right? It's going to start deteriorating. So when we just sit there in front of these screens, it's like vegetating. You know, my mother, back in the 1960s, she threw the television out of our house. I mean, take this stuff, forget that. Television. She said, this television is turning my kids into vegetables. I'm not having it. She took it out. Everybody thought she was crazy, but she was absolutely right. So the mind needs to be continuously exercised. And that takes us, to the continuous quest for knowledge. So that's a whole chapter. Knowledge. What knowledge? Why knowledge? And it's interesting that Prophet ﷺ said that we should seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave. People think, well, I got my PhD, so it's over. It's never over. You haven't been given knowledge except a small portion, right? So we talk about that. In that section, we talk about why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us intelligence in the first place, which we talked about a little bit earlier. Because we're supposed to use that to reflect on Allah's creation. It points to Him and our purpose of life. And then 3 tiers of knowledge. The knowledge about Allah, al-ilm billah, to know Allah, His names, His asma, sifat, His af'al, everything which is concerning Allah. And that knowledge is desirable in and of itself. Usually knowledge is a medium to perform something or acquire something or do something, perform some sort of task. But this knowledge is in and of itself matlub. And then the second tier of knowledge is the knowledge of what we've been talking about today, submission to Allah. All these areas of submission, whether that's in our ibadat, whether that's in our muamalat, our muasharat, our transactions, our relationships, whether it happens to be in whatever activity that human beings engaged in, there are orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's ways of the Prophet. There's usul and furu', principles and applications in everything that we do. That's the second tier of knowledge. And that continues forever. All of these, both of these. The last tier of knowledge is the knowledge of those support systems that support our physical existence. Something like the knowledge of how to keep your car in shape. Because these bodies, these physical bodies are actually, what are they? They're vehicles. So our Sheikh in Medina, he used to say that, he used to give this funny example. He said, in the old days, the people, they used to ride on donkeys, okay? Actually, when I was a student in Makkah, people still, these old guys, they used to ride around on donkeys, So one time, there was a donkey, there was an old guy, Hadrami, he was walking, going down the lane on his donkey. So these young kids in Makkah, they were laughing. Sheikh al-Himar. The old guy and his donkey, they were laughing. I said, wait, hang on. So what's better, the Sheikh's donkey or your Mercedes? So come on, man. Where's Mercedes? Wait, Mercedes, wait. Come on. I said, well, tell me one thing. If this Sheikh goes to sleep on his donkey, what happens? I mean, maximum, he'll fall off. He'll probably survive that, you know. Now, suppose you go to sleep on the wheel of your Mercedes on the Khatta City, the expressway. You know how these Saudis drive. So you go to sleep on your Mercedes, then what's going to happen? Gone. By the way, what's the stats for the yearly collisions of donkeys, you know? I mean, how many people get killed in donkey collisions, you know? As opposed to car collisions. And by the way, are these donkeys polluting the air like your cars? Okay, so you get there a little bit later, you know, but it's a lot safer, a lot better for the environment. So anyway, the point is that the donkey is a conveyance. We have these conveyances and we have the rider. Okay, so people used to, suppose my friend came to my house, suppose Yahya comes on his donkey, he comes to my house. So I tell Yahya, okay, sit over there. And I take the donkey by the hoof, bring him into the drawing room, put him on the sofa, give him some ruafza, some biryani and some shahi tokri, you know, right? And then I send some straw and some hay out to my friend Yahya. So what are you going to say? Did I get that one right? So what happened? I just flipped the whole thing. In other words, I gave the treatment to the rider that I should have given to the transport, and vice versa. So if you think that's crazy, well then we're all crazy, because that's exactly what we do. This transport, we treat it like, you know, we feed it to the max, we clothe it to the max, we house it to the max. I mean, and then time for salat. Okay, we have to make salat, jaldi, you know, quick. You know, how much time are we spending on the raqib, the ruh? That's the rider. How much time are we spending on that? How much attention are we giving to that? That should be given most of the attention. This is what our pious ancestors, that's how they lived their lives. You look at their lives, that's, you know, they ate for necessity. They wore out of necessity. So there's necessities of life and there's objective of life. Big difference. Now, interestingly, that third tier of knowledge is about the vehicle. Now, by the way, the donkey, even though it's a donkey, you have to take good care of that donkey. Because you'll be asked about that donkey on the Day of Judgment. Did you put more load on it? Did you feed it properly? Did you take care of it? If you didn't, you're in trouble. So similarly, our bodies, these are not our bodies, by the way. They belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's an aman, it's a trust. We're going to have to give it back. Did we take care of it or not? Right? So we're going to have to, you know. So it's clothing, it's feeding, agriculture, engineering, all these things. These are all connected to the physical existence, which facilitates our life of Ubudiyyah. You follow my point? So I need to get to California in 3 days. I need a car, a fast car. So the object is not the car. The object is I'm trying to get to California, and I'm supposed to be the object. But I need to take good care of the car. That's essential for me. So similarly, our physical existence, it has, and also, this is the another silver lining to the whole thing, is that everything, as we mentioned earlier, all things that we're going to engage in, that's connected to our life of Ubudiyyah. We're eating for the sake of serving Allah. We're propagating, you know, we're progenerating, you know, for the sake of continuing the lineage of service of Allah. We go to our job to learn halal so we can continue serving Allah. So if we have that connection and that intention, then all of that is going to be considered also ibadah. So all of those systems, by the way, excellence is required for those activities as well. It's not just our ibadah. It's not just, you know, our akhlaq. Whatever we do, the Prophet ﷺ says, إِذَا عَمِلَ مِنْكُمْ أَحَدٌ عَمَلًا فَلْيُتْقِنْهُ. If any of you do something, you do it with excellence. Even your animals, you have to slaughter an animal, which is not really a pleasant thing, is it? You know. But even in that, فَإِذَا ذَبَحْتُمْ فَأَحْسِنُوا الذِّبْحَ. Even in your slaughtering of the animal, if you have to fight in the war, do it excellently. Whatever you have to do, it should be done excellently. And if it has the proper intentions, following Sharia and Sunnah, it has those principles, then it becomes also an act of ibadah. Now, this is the third tier of knowledge, but it's also very important. But it's the third level of importance. If you look at our education systems in the world today, what do they focus on? Do you hear anything about the first tier? Knowledge of Allah? I mean, in Harvard, do they teach you about knowledge of Allah? I mean, unless you're a divinity student, just for the sake of scholasticism, you know. But I mean, is anybody really concerned that you should know about Allah in these education systems? Or that you should know how to live a life of servitude to Allah? Unfortunately, even in our institutions, this has become. But what about, so everything in the educational system is because, you remember the two paradigms? The material paradigm, the good. So it's all based on that material paradigm, the whole educational system. So we talk about that, and hopefully Muslims are starting to understand this, and we're starting to get it right. Okay, now we need to revamp the whole education system. So that's what that is all about. And then physical, as I said, physical, that's the vehicle. So there's a divine connection here. There's a sacred connection with this body is an amanah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so we need to take care of it. And we're going to look at that in the light of the Quran and Sunnah, and if you look at the life of the Prophet ﷺ and the pious ancestors, they were very particular about that, right? And so in that module, we look at three basic areas. Number one, we look at movement and rest. Usually people say, okay, what do we need to eat? Forget about eating for right now. Are you moving? Do you have movement in your life? The Prophet ﷺ says that you have 360 joints in your body. And every day you wake up, you're supposed to pay sadaqah for those. Just think about that. Suppose this one little joint in my finger goes out. It's going to change my life. Your knee goes out, your elbow goes out, your shoulder's gone. Your life is going to be totally, in disarray. It's going to be, So we should be cognizant of that, and we're supposed to pay sadaqah for that. So suppose that was $1, per joint. $360 a day for most of us, that's going to be tough, So Prophet ﷺ says, no. One tasbih is a sadaqah. One tahmeed, sadaqah. We just said 100 times, subhanallah. So we got 300, we already did the 300, we only got 60 left. So just be nice to somebody, smile at somebody, help somebody do, their work or whatever. And just make 2 rakats in the beginning of the day, it's going to cover the whole thing. Point is, if we have all these joints in our body, the engineering, it looks like we were created to sit in front of screens all day. What do you think? Does that make sense? Or does it look like we were engineered to be moving? Movement. And if you look at the life of the Prophet ﷺ, he was in motion. He was all the time moving. They walked to the masjid, they walked to visit their friends, there's some problem, they go out in jihad, they go out in dawah, they were on the move. So that's why they said, well, you talk about exercise and some exercise regimens. Well, that's not sunnah. Because they didn't need to do that. We sit around all day long, so you have to do something to mitigate that, right? So we look at that from the standpoint of, from our deen, movement, and then rest. Just like movement, you need to have proper rest. This is all the small type of system they created. Then we look at diet. What to eat, what not to eat. And when and how much to eat. I mean, we spend all of our time in eating, so the default mode of the human being is hunger. That's the default mode. We eat when we have to. When you fill up your tank of your car more than what it holds, then what happens? It's going to be a disaster. That's what we're doing continuously. So we have a lot of problems. So we look at diet, and we look at what to eat, how much to eat, and we look into that to some degree. And then we talk a little bit about prevention and cure. So if you follow a healthy lifestyle, probably you're not going to have a lot of problems. I mentioned my mother, because we originally learned these things from my mother, who was very into these things, and she lived to 95 years old, and the only thing that was wrong with her was that her life was over. Till the day before 2 days before she died, I was with her. And her mind was 100% perfectly. And she was always an activist, and she did all of these, activist kind of things, and she was a big eco activist. So she was telling me, Hashim, you have to read about what so-and-so said, and 2 days later she leaves. So if we'll keep ourselves, we look after our bodies, we look after our souls, we live a healthy lifestyle, we're not going to need much intervention, inshallah. So we look into those. Then we have nafsani, emotional health. Which is a big deal these days, right? And as time goes on and we get more and more disconnected from a natural lifestyle and disconnected from Allah, so the more obviously emotional problems and mental problems that we're going to be having. So how do we look at that from an Islamic standpoint? So we look into that as well. And then ultimately, so that's the micro, the individual, soul, mind, body, but we're not islands. We are social beings. So we have relationships, starting with husband and wife, then we have children, we have extended family, we have neighbors, we have community, we have continent, we have a global community of human beings. So relationships, the various relationships we have with all sorts of people. So we look at that in terms of this amazing hierarchy that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created, and the social structure. It's amazing, how it's not, we didn't come up with this, It's just like business, transactions and trading. This is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala engineered that to test us to see how we're going to deal with one another in financial transactions and social interactions. So these are all tests from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, so we're moving into the macro now, relationships, and then we look at, the specific relationships also, between spouses, between children and parents, and in relations, etc., etc. What are the duties from Quran and Sunnah, and what are some of the challenges? So we go into that in some detail. And then ultimately, this whole drama of life takes place where? On planet Earth, right? So the planet, and since Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa, so we're not, we usually understand that meaning that we're khalifa, we have to look after Dima. What about the earth where this takes place? Are we not responsible for that as well? What do you think? Absolutely. And you'll see a lot of Quran and Hadith that points to this, but we, like so many other things, we seem to be totally incognizant of that. But we need to be. So, in environment, looking after the environment, whether it's physical, spiritual, social, so there's a lot of dimensions to environment itself. So we look at that. And one of the main features of this last module is we look at the system of permaculture. How many of you have heard of the term permaculture? Swaim has heard about that. Okay, I'll give you some homework. Permaculture, everybody look it up, Google it, and see. So it's a whole system of rejuvenating, the earth. My mother was a big proponent of that. And I also studied that with a fellow by the name of Jeff Lawton, who's a Muslim, by the way. His actual name is Jalaluddin. He's from Australia. And so it has very practical ways of really bringing the earth back into some semblance of order and health. So just as we're responsible for our own individuals, our families, we're also responsible for the earth that we live on. Okay, and so looking after that and its stewardship. There's also another, great, did you know Abdul Mateen? He wrote a book called The Green Deen. Afro-American brother, he passed away a few years ago. He's originally from California, but then he ended up coming, he came somewhere here in the East, tried to set up a community and do these kind of things. But he met with a lot of resistance, unfortunately. And then passed away a few years. Wonderful fellow. So he wrote a book called The Green Deen. A wonderful book. And actually, I used that as a kind of a format for this module. So that's another resource. You can download that book, The Green Deen. It's wonderful, wonderful book. May Allah have mercy on Brother Abdul Mateen. So that's the whole program. And we have about an hour left. So what we'll do is, inshallah, okay, so we'll be sitting, everybody stand up a little bit, and we'll again move about. Get the blood flowing a little bit. Who remembers the exercise we did last time? Take this elbow and you touch this knee. Okay, come on. Remember Colonel Saab used to have us do those kinds of exercises? He was right out there. Yeah, just get the blood flowing a little bit so that we stay awake for this next session. Okay, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So this module itself is like 3 days when we do it right, so we don't have much time. So we'll just touch some points of it, and maybe we'll come back and we'll do the whole thing properly, inshallah, sometime in the near future, inshallah. So, spiritual health. So, first of all, kind of a disclaimer, spiritual health, that's a huge topic. And as we say in Arabic, لِكُلِّ مَجَال رِجَال. For every field there are specialists, so I don't claim to be a specialist of anything. But we're going to just touch on some generic things that everybody can understand, everybody can, inshallah, participate and have some very easy takeaways, inshallah. So, the basis of all Ruhaniyat is what? Is Iman. Okay? Now, let's think about Iman. Now, we all know, okay, Iman, believe in Allah and so forth, and okay, it's very important. But how important really is it? Do we ever really stop and think just how important this really is? So what is the importance and impact of Iman in dunya and the hereafter? Okay, yeah, so if we have Iman, then inshallah we'll ultimately go to Jannah. But what significance would Iman and what impact would it have on our worldly existence also? And then next worldly existence. So if we can think about that, ponder over that. So what do you think? In this world, what would be the importance and impact of having Iman in this world? First of all, would it have an impact?
Yes, absolutely.
Like what? How would that manifest?
If you have Iman, then you believe the right and wrong.
Yeah.
And you are cognizant that Allah is watching you.
So it would have a huge impact. We talked about, the prohibition area. Okay, what else?
Change your way of
Motivation.
living, change your way of thinking,
Yeah.
change your way of believing.
For sure. Absolutely.
Motivates you to work for the Akhirah.
For sure. Anything else? Well, let's look at Quran. What does the Quran say about Iman? أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم قد أفلح المؤمنون. I mean, it's actually two words, and qad is, we call this a harf, it's just an emphasis. And basically, the mu'minun, the people of Iman, they've succeeded. Now it's interesting that the past tense is used here. It didn't say the mu'min will succeed. That's what we would, No, it says the mu'min have succeeded. But wait a minute, they haven't even come into the world yet when this is revealed. The people of Iman, it's already, so it's like, in business, you have these guys, they're called troubleshooters, right? So you've got this guy that, you got some problem in the business or your organization, so you got this guy, he's called a troubleshooter. Let's suppose his name is Khalid. So Khalid, look, I got this issue happening. I said, boss, don't worry about it. It's done. You've heard that kind of thing. It's done. Don't worry about it. It's over. Done. Done deal. So what do you mean? He hasn't even done it yet. And there's no saying he's going to even live to do it, But he's so certain about it that it's as though it is already done. Meaning what? It's so certain that you don't even have to consider it. Now, any human being makes that statement. That's a very subjective statement. But if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says it's done, it's done. So, therefore, the success of the people of Iman is a done deal. Now, that's one thing. Second important thing is, falah, it basically means to succeed in what? In everything. So what the ulama mentioned, kad aflah, and it doesn't mention they'll succeed in what? They'll succeed in their career, they'll succeed in their business, they'll succeed in their, campaign against whatever. It doesn't say that. Now, in the Arabic language, there's a principle that we purposely don't mention the specific issue so that it becomes general. In Arabic, we say, يُحْفِظُ الْمَعْمُولِ لِيَعُمُّ. This is a very salient feature of the Quran. For example, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. You have in the example of the prophets the best of example. So the question pops up, okay, in what? We already talked about that, right? So in what? In everything. So that's the thing. So here also, so they'll succeed in what sense? In every sense. They're like Yahya says, everything. It's all gonna come together if you have Iman. Which means if you don't have Iman, then what happens? We'll look at that. So the basis of ultimate success in both the worlds depends on Iman. That should be sufficient, right? Now that's from the positive standpoint. What about the negative, flip side of that? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. And actually all those other three are connected to Iman. So it's basically, because if you have Iman, you're going to do Amal Salih, and then you're going to do Tawasi bil Haq. So that was the khutbah yesterday. So we talked about that. Anybody remember that?
Yes.
We talked about, in every aspect of life here on the planet Earth, it's a mess. Why? Because the Iman has been taken out of the equation. So there's no accountability, there's no humanity, there's no empathy, it's just a total collapse. So therefore, not only the ultimate success is in Iman, but deliverance from ultimate loss is also in Iman. So that should be sufficient, but that's not all. We see so many things in the Quran. Guidance. Without guidance, there's one dua that's wajib. Suppose I don't ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I don't ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ever to bless me or my family or give me righteous children or a righteous wife, which is very foolish on my part. But am I a sinner? Am I required to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all of these things? Suppose I say, well, Allah knows what's best for me and He'll do that. It's okay. Although we're going to talk about dua later on, or it's not right now. But you're not required to ask. It's good to do that. You should be doing that, but you're not. It's not required of you. But there is a dua that's required of you. It's fard. And what dua is that? That's right. And what is that dua? Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim. Talab al-hidayah, that's fard. You have to. Because without that, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching us what we should ask for, because we don't know what to ask for. That's why it's very important to study and utilize the du'as of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He knew exactly what to ask for. We don't know. We might be asking for something and it's really going to be bad for us, Like, I have to, have this marriage. I have to do this business. I need that house. Maybe that's going to be a disaster for you. You don't know that, But Allah knows what's best for us. So we look at those du'as of the Prophet ﷺ and what he asked for, we should understand. These are the things we should be asking for. Anyway, so we are required to ask for hidayat because it is so important. One of our ulama, he said something very interesting. He said that human beings, they have various needs. You need food. And if you don't get food for a few months, you'll die. People think, especially the ladies, the bacha, he doesn't eat breakfast. Oh, he's going to die of starvation. No, he's not. He's going to be okay. He'll be okay for the next couple of months, actually. It takes a long time to die of starvation. And if the kid doesn't want to eat, it probably shouldn't be eating. Probably doesn't need to eat. But anyway, it takes a long time. But nevertheless, after some months, because what has to happen, all the excess, body weight is going to have to be, all the fat is going to be utilized, and then your body tissue, it's going to take a long time. But you will ultimately die. So the need for food is real. There's a heavier need, which is for water. Water, you can't go for more than a week without water, depending on the climate that you live in. So that's even a more serious, critical need, water. More critical than that is air. You can't live 10 minutes without air. But there's a need that's more critical than all of those. Hidayat. With all those needs in this, you have hidayat. Because without this hidayat, we're not going to make it here in any reasonable fashion. And we're certainly not going to make it in the hereafter for eternity. Eternal success is contingent on hidayat. And hidayat is for who? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna Allah lahadi alladina amanu. He guides the people who have iman. So when we're asking for guidance, then there needs to be a base of iman, which of course Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by His grace and mercy would have given anyway. But He's telling you because you need it. Ya alladina amanu, aminu. This is a very interesting ayah. O people of iman, have iman, or do iman, or engage in it. Well, you already have iman, so what more? Increase in it, develop it more. That's what we're going to be talking about. Iman, it goes up, it goes down, it's not static. It's like the temperature. It's like water. You put it in the fridge, immediately it starts to freeze. You put it out in the heat, it starts to get hot. It's influenced by things. We're going to talk about that inshallah later. So, guidance for the people of Iman. What about honor and dignity? Huge issue. Especially in Urdu, what they say, Izzat ki baat bhai. Badi baat, right? And it is. It's a very big thing for a human being and human society. And so where does that dignity and honor come from? You have to honor me and recognize me because I'm what? What are you? I'm from this family, I'm from this nationality, I have this bag. So why does that give you anything to be honored about? You started out as a drop, and you'll end up as a corpse, and you've got, most of your inside of your body is najasa. So why are you getting so haughty? So in and of ourselves, there's nothing to be, and whatever we have, this always gets, did you think about this? This is really amazing. We have a thing in the Western culture called beauty pageants. what do? You know, these women come and they are judged on their beauty. And the most beautiful one gets a prize. What does she have to do with that? Does she have anything to do with that? Nothing to do with it. Has nothing to do with her at all. It's just, Allah made her beautiful, or not so beautiful. But people put a big thing in with it. They'll hold it high. It seems like we talked about celebrities. They get paid, ridiculous amounts of money, and they're held in such high esteem, and they are, the destroyers of society more than anything else. So how disconnected we are. So dignity and honor has nothing to do with your physical appearance, with your bank account, the letters after your name, or what lineage you might have. Your honor and dignity is what is intrinsically in you, your qualities. Therefore, al-izzatu lillahi, that's where everything comes from in the first place. Wali rasulihi, walil mu'mineen. So dignity and honor is connected with iman. So if there's anything to feel honored and dignified about, it's the level of iman. Steadfastness on deen, istiqamah. Allahu Akbar. They say, la karama kal istiqamah. Karamat. Karamats is like mu'jizat. The Anbiya, they have mu'jizat, these miraculous things that identify or, sort of highlight the fact that this is a prophet. So you have similar miraculous things that happen to the friends of Allah. There's some sort of technical difference, but in any case, we believe in those miracles. It's miraculous things that happen to people, and there's so many stories of that. But they say the most miraculous of all the miracles that can happen to anybody is that they are steadfast on deen. Despite the fact that a human being is a human being. He's got passions, he's got desires, he's weak, but he's able to remain steadfast on deen, subhanAllah. That is the karama above all karamat. So that's why they say, la karama kal istiqama. Right? So who is istiqama? Again, it's going to be for the people of iman. يُثَبِّتُ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا بِالْقَوْلِ الثَّابِتِ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. People of iman, and they struggle with their iman, just like we said, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا آمِنُوا. Oh, I have iman. Well, it's not sufficient. Continues. We always want more money, we always want more status, we always want more position, perks, bonuses. We should have that desire should be for continuous, efforts to elevate the level of our iman and amal. And if we'll engage like that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will, inshallah, give us this ultimate karama in favor of istiqamah. And it's a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah give us all. Amen. And this ayat, by the way, is going to be mentioned because it comes to play in so many places. It comes to play in the world, it comes to play at the time of death, in the grave, on the sirat. Okay. And then ultimately everybody just in this world, they want to have a blessed, beautiful, comfortable, pleasurable, satisfactory life, right? So what does that entail? That's another word where we got it all wrong. If I just get to America, if I can just get to the suburbs, okay, you get to America and you're in some congested, but if I just get out to the suburbs, what was the name of this area?
Aldi.
Huh? Aldi. If I get to Aldi, I'll be okay. But then there's a better suburb down the road. Oh, if I could just get there, And then we get there, but if I could just go to California, Beverly Hills. And then we get to Beverly, but it's okay, but Riviera, so there's no end to that. Prophet ﷺ says, if Ibn Adam, if he has a valley of gold, he's going to look, where's the other one? Where's the next one? And he says the stomach of the son of Adam will never be full except with dirt. Meaning what? The desire is never finished. The entire dunya, it's an amazing thing, that the desires of every human being are unlimited. And the world, by nature, is limited. So therefore, The entirety of the world cannot satisfy the desires of one single human being, much less a whole 8 billion of population. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave this unlimited desire to ultimately be fulfilled. But it has to be in a place which is unlimited. And where's the unlimited place where that can happen? Exactly. So if you're looking to fulfill your desires and I'll be satisfied, you're never going to be satisfied. So forget about it. So just clamp, down on those desires because it's never going to happen. Right? So the beautiful and blessed life is, and I talked about that yesterday, and I've seen this all over the world. The most unhappy, this is true. I mean, I've seen this everywhere. It's not only, it's every country I've ever been in. The happiest people you meet are the poorest people. It's always like that, despite the problems and difficulties that they have. It's true in this country also. I grew up, right, in Beverly Hills. My classmates, as I mentioned, I have never seen such distraught, mentally disturbed people ever as these people. And then in the countryside, you go to the countryside, and people, they don't have anything. How's it going, man? Oh, yeah, it's fine, man. It's okay. It's good. Yeah. Life is great. It's good. In Pakistan, Kyale, Allah ki shukr. And then Saib with all his money, because the more you have in the world, the more it's going to burden you. The more you're going to be worried about it. The more you're going to be connected to it. It's actually a problem. It's problematic. The more you have, the more you can be concerned. So where is the blessed life? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, من عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى وهو مؤمن فلنحيينه حياة طيبة. It's amazing. Whoever lives a life of good deeds. So actually, this is a person also, when you think about it, we think, our conventional understanding is, we want to take, I want. And I think from my want, if I get what I want, I'll be happy. It doesn't work that way. The amazing thing is, it works the opposite way. The happiest people, even non-Muslims, are who? Philanthropists. Have you ever noticed that? You show me a person who gives charity, I'll show you a happy person. I guarantee you that. It doesn't matter if he's a Muslim. Yeah, this is an interesting thing, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to grant you some reward for good deeds that you do, even if you're not a Muslim. But how does that look like? In the hereafter, it's not going to help you. Well, we can't say it won't help you altogether, because just like Jannah is not one level, not everybody's going to be in the same level. Everybody's going to be at their own level, from the lowest to the top. Jahannam is also like that. It's not all one, it's darakat. Jannah is darajat, Jahannam is darakat. The last darakat is where the munafiqs are, and the really big shayateen, the big, really criminals, So maybe they're going to be in a little higher place in Jahannam, That's possible. But in this world, they will definitely they'll get reward for that. And among the best rewards they'll get for their generosity is feeling good about it. You ask somebody, a generous person, okay, well, what do you get out of being generous? I feel good about it. That is more valuable than anything. So having this beautiful, blessed life is about iman and amal salih. So who lives a life of righteous action, he's going to have a beautiful life, with the condition, and that's in this world and in the next, with the condition that he has iman. من عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى. And here's one of the instances where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions women specifically. Men and women. Be sure. Who lives a life of righteousness, man, woman, and they're believers, I'll give them a beautiful life, guaranteed for them. It doesn't mean He'll give you an affluent life. Because as I said, maybe that's not good for you. Most of the time it isn't, really. The things of the world that we have that are above and beyond our necessity, we're going to have to give account for them. They're a burden in this world also. We have to look after it, we have to protect it. People are going to try and take it. I had a friend in Karachi. He had a brand new Corolla. Back in the day, that was a big deal in Karachi. He had a Corolla, and a newer one, that was a big deal. And then he had this old car, I forget what it was, this old car with it. And so he used to always drive his old car. And the new one would be there in the compound parked. So I asked him, I said, look, you've got this new car, why didn't you drive that? You're always driving the old car. He said, oh, if I drive that new car, then maybe I'm going to get the evil eye on it, and maybe, it's snatched. I said, then why did you buy it in the first place? What's the use? You're afraid to even, and people want to, have these things, and they go out and then people are going to, be jealous about it, criminals are going to try and take it away, so you're going to, and then in the hereafter, you're going to have to give account for it. So it's really in the best interest to, just as Nabi Sallallahu, what we need, that's enough. Whatever Allah's going to give you, you're going to get it anyway, And I might add another interesting thing. What's the difference between the billionaires of Sahaba and the billionaires of today? We had billionaires. I mean, if you look at it in retrospect, in relationship, Abdurrahman ibn Auf and these guys, they were billionaires, no question about it, But there's a huge difference between them. Like we have Warren Buffett. The guy gave away $30 billion. I mean, it's not a small thing. We're not going to discount that. It's a big deal. I mean, he's still got 30. At the time he had 60 billion. He gives away 30, but he's still got 30. I don't think anybody needs $30 billion, really, Now, somebody like Abdurrahman bin Auf or any of our pious ancestors, they had huge amounts of resources that Allah gave them. Even they weren't after it, but Allah gave it to them. So they understood that whatever Allah is giving them, that's an amana. And Allah is watching what I'm going to do with this. Do I think this is mine? Because I'm like Qarun, إِنَّمَا أُوتِيتُ مِنْ عِلْمٍ عِنْدِي. This is my cleverness, They never looked at it like that. They saw this is Allah, this is a test from Allah. And so I've got all these resources, and now I'm going to have to use them properly. So they would live a frugal life. They're billionaires, but they're going to live a very frugal life. Moderately, they would live and they would spend moderately on themselves, and everything above and beyond that. Here, just the Nabi Sallallahu says, the people who have all this resources is going to be a problem, except those who do like this. In other words, they're spending here, there, and there. Right? So, beautiful life is not about things outside of you. Beautiful life is, a connection with Allah, love in one's heart, contentment, qana. Content with what you have. It's such a great wealth. If you're content with what you have, then, Nabi Sallallahu says, who wakes up in the morning and he's mu'afan fi jasadi, he's got reasonable physical health, right? Wa aminan fi sirbi, he's got his peace of mind in his heart. Wa lahu quta yawmihi, he has enough to eat for today. That's how we used to be back in the day, right? When we first became Muslims, that's what we used to do. We used to roam around the street and sell stuff. We had something to eat in the day, and fine, if we didn't, okay, it's okay. Those are some great times, actually. Right, huh? It was one of the most pleasurable times, beautiful times of our lives, when we just became Muslims and we didn't know all of this stuff. We just, So if you have something to eat for the day, you're physically, basically okay, and you're content in your heart, كَأَنَّهُ حِيزَةَ الدُّنْيَا بِحَلَافِرِهَا. It's like you have the whole world. Because how much of the world can you utilize? So whatever is in the world, whatever is there, that's all we need to be totally content. So if we are given what we call qana, contentment for what we have, and Allah has given us so much, whatever we have, it's so much. Right? So that's where content lies. And so that is also contingent on Iman. Who's going to have that perspective in life? The people of
Iman.
The people of Iman. Then, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's friendship and alliance. Allahu Akbar. People, I know so-and-so. don't mess with me because I got so-and-so in my back, you know. Come on. So what, you know? Suppose Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is your ally. And you can say, look, don't mess with me because I got Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on my side. Be careful. I mean, if we know that, then we're for sure, you know, we have all the right to have that position. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is on the side of who? You guessed it, the people of Iman. Allahu waliyul ladina amanu. Also, this is very interesting. People, when we say wali Allah, you know, the friends of Allah, and people think about these guys flying in the sky and walking on water and all this kind of thing. Actually, it's much more general than that. Ala inna awliya Allah la khawfun alayhim wa la hum yahzanun. Verily, the people, the friends of Allah, there's no fear on them and they are not going to grieve. So now, everybody, okay, so who are they? So Allah subhanahu explains. Alladina amanu wa kanu yattaqun. The people of Iman. The people of Iman and Taqwa, these are the friends of Allah. These are the awliya of Allah. And interestingly, kanu yattaqun. He didn't say wa kanu muttaqin. Kanu yattaqun. You remember we said ya'budun? So the same concept here. They were continuously exercising taqwa. وَكَانُوا يَتَّقُونَ. These are the friends of Allah. So again, all of this is based on Iman. And then security. Security is a big issue or not? Huge issue. It's a global issue. For the individual, for the family, for the group. So where's defense? إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُدَافِعُ عَنِ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. Allah is going to protect, He's going to come to the defense of the people of Iman. And we have so many stories of that. The Prophet ﷺ in Ghari Hira, what happened? So many, you know, it's a reality. Diverging a little bit is an interesting story about in Pakistan. You probably all heard, or you all know that Pakistan is a nuclear power. They have the atom bomb. Few people know the story behind that. And even Pakistanis, they associate the atom bomb with the name of Dr. Abdul Qadir, right? But actually Abdul Qadir was one of the engineers, but the project manager was a fellow by the name of Sultan Bashir. Most people don't know about that. Very interesting story. So I happen to know this guy. I met him and there was a seminar, and it was an engineering seminar, and they invited me there. I don't know why, I have no clue. I have nothing to do with engineering really. But somehow I was there. So this fellow was the MC of that seminar. A really amazing fellow. So he told the whole story of how they developed the atom bomb in Pakistan. It's an amazing story, actually. And it has something to do with this. So the first thing was that he was just a fresh graduate. He's like 23, 24 years old. And Bhutto Saab, you know, during the time, so he commissioned this guy for this project to develop an atom bomb. Can you imagine that? A young graduate, you know, that's amazing. Now, what did he do? So he made a team of all fresh graduates like him. And no one, you know, so he explains, he says, so people would imagine when you're going to form a team for such a magnanimous job, and you're going to go find people that have experience, a lot of knowledge and, you know, expertise and experience in that field. He said, I don't want anybody with experience. I said, why not? He said, because if I get these experienced guys, none of them are courageous. They're going to be very, very cautious. People with experience and older, they're cautious. I don't want cautious. I want, you know, courageous people who are just ready to run with it, you know. So he hired all these young kids, you know, fresh graduates like himself. Anyways, long story, but it was very interesting. And then, you know, the U.S., they start understanding these guys are doing something, you know. So they slap all those sanctions like they have in Iran and all that. They did that in Pakistan. And how these guys got all these things, it was just amazing. Jugaad, total jugaad. Yeah, amazing. It really I hope the guy writes a book on that. But anyway, but the point is that, so okay, when they finished the whole project, then, you know, the reactors, they're round, right? The reactor room, it's a round thing. It's got like a qubba. It's kind of like, Masjid al-Aqsa or, Masjid al-Sakhra. So now, after the whole project is over, the security establishment wants to come and see, okay, now, what kind of security arrangements have you made for this? Obviously, that's... So the top brass of the security establishment, they come with Sultan Saab and they want to see, what's going on. And they're looking around, they don't see what they were expecting to see. So he says, Sultan Saab, we're not seeing the kind of layers of security we're expecting to see. He says in Urdu, he says, Hamara security aage. So what does that mean? It's ahead. Security, it's ahead. Okay. So they go into the room, actually, the reactor room. It's this round room. And what he had done was, he had gotten these stainless steel 10-foot letters of Ayatul Kursi all around the reactor room. He said, Ye Hamara security. I mean, it wasn't the only thing they did, but... So when people ask me, what do you like about Pakistan? I said, stuff like that. That's some amazing stuff. You'll only see something like that in Pakistan. I have no offense in India, But it's really, it's amazing. So the point is, and he also mentioned an interesting thing, and that was the first installation that they have. Now they have other places around the country, but that was the first one. They've never had an issue with that. He says these reactors, when they get old, there's always going to be some leakage, there's going to be some problem. I mean, after a period of time. But this one, until today, no issue. Yeah. Even Japan, that disaster they had. So what's the takeaway? So who's going to be in your defense? إِن يَنْصُرْكُمُ اللَّهُ فَلَا غَالِبَ لَكُمْ وَإِن يَخْذُلْكُمْ, he doesn't defend you, فَمَنْ ذَا الَّذِي يَنْصُرُ مِنْ بَعْدِهِ وَعَلَى اللَّهِ فَلْيَتَوَكَّلِ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ again. And then ultimately, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ سَيَجْعَلُ لَهُمُ الرَّحْمَنُ وُدًّا. It's amazing. The people of Iman and Amal al-Salih, Allah will put love in the hearts of the creation for these people. And you look at the Sahaba, it's subhanAllah. Our Sheikh used to say that the winds love Sahaba, the animals love Sahaba, everything. They were all subjected. Ala ibn al-Hadrami, radiallahu anhu, he actually literally with his army walks over the water to Bahrain. Who was from Bahrain? Somebody was there, he said it was from Bahrain. They walk over, they get the Persians had scuttled all the ships. So there's no way to get to them. They thought they were really clever, So he's looking at this, he says, okay, whoever hasn't done pure Tawbah, make Tawbah right now, and we're going to say the name of Allah, and he said, Ya Halim, Ya Kareem, or whatever, and we're going to go. So now, with their horses, by the way, they just go right into the sea, and they're trapped. So these Iranians, these persons, see these guys walking across, it's okay. They see these guys, they just give up. I mean, how are you going to fight with people like that? So this is the thing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will, And the very interesting hadith, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves somebody, what happens? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls Sayyidina Jibreel alayhi salam. And he says, yeah, Jibreel, I love so-and-so, so you also love him. This is somebody, nobody knows who he is, Therefore, Allah, Rasul, he says, Ruba ash'ath aghbar, law aqsama wallahi la barrahu. You have these individuals nobody pays any attention to. They've got dust on their bodies, their hair is all disheveled. Madfu'an anil abwab. They knock on somebody's door and ask anywhere, hey, But if they aqsama wallahi la barrahu, if they say, oh Allah, do this for me, Allah does it. You don't know who these people are. It could be anybody. It's his connection, Iman. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells Jibreel, I love so-and-so, you also love him. So Jibreel calls all the malaika. This is amazing. He calls all the malaika. Do you know how many malaika there are? No, you don't. Nobody knows. But just to get an idea, Rasulullah says, "Attat as-samaa qad tu'it." The sky is making a groaning kind of a sound. Actually, it's the groaning sound that camels make when you put the saddle on. He said, why? Because there's not a shibr, a hand's width of space, except there's an angel in the sky, either in prostration or in ruku or doing tasbih. And we know about what? How many billion light years we've got of expansiveness?
13.
Huh?
13 billion so far.
30 so far?
13 billion.
13 billion? That's all?
So far.
13 billion light years. Can you imagine a light? We talked about that yesterday, right? A light year, the speed of light, 186,000 miles per second for 10 billion years. I mean, you can't even imagine 1 year of light travel, much less. So all this that we know about, and there's much more that we don't know about. It's all full of these malaika. So all these malaika start loving this guy. You talk about Facebook likes. Huh? I got 20 million Facebook. Come on, what is that? And by the way, all those likes, what does that get you in the end of the day? Does that do anything for you? Except make you unhappy when you find out that he's got 30 million likes. That's about all that amounts to. It's absolutely insane. But you have all the angels now love you. And then ثُمَّ يُوضَعْ لَهُ الْقَبُولُ فِي الْأَرْضِ. And then all the creatures of the earth start loving that person. All he needs is Iman. Iman says, subhanallah. Look at this, Allahu Akbar. So we can get an idea how important Iman is in the next world. Subhanallah. Inna ladina qalu Rabbuna Allah thumma istaqamu. Those people who say that, or again, istaqamu, they say, Allah is our Lord, and they remain steadfast on that. Tatanazzalu alayhim al-malaika, the angels come down. They were the friends of this guy, right? So now he's leaving the world. Now when you leave the world, now just think about this. We should be thinking about this every day. Muraqabat al-maut is something we should be doing all the time. When we leave the world, we have two big issues. Number one, where we're going. We don't know. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal radiallahu anh, he was heard on his deathbed, he's saying, La hatalan, la hatalan. No, not yet, no, not yet. So his son, Abdullah ibn Ahmad, he said, yeah, Father, what's this? No, not yet, no, not yet. He said, Shaitan came to me and said, Ibn Hanbal, najawta minni. You made it. You escaped from my, my... I said, no, not yet. I'm not sure of that. SubhanAllah. So we don't know. And who was Ahmad ibn Hanbal? Just read his history. Who was he? Imam Ahl Sunnah. So we don't know what's going to happen ahead. And that's an eternal ahead. That is beyond huge. Plus, we're leaving the world. What about our families? What about our children? What about our property? What about whatever? So we're going to be worried about that. So we have two big worries. We're concerned with what's ahead, and we're very, very worried about what's going to happen from behind. These angels come and say, relax. It's okay. You made it. This is right when you're leaving this world and you're in that, that state of, you made it. Jannah. And don't worry about it. We got you covered. It's okay. So can you imagine how, we can't even imagine, but just try and let us imagine how wonderful that would make anybody feel. And how disastrous the person otherwise would feel. No, you're going to Jahannam and there's ruins behind you. So that's all based on Iman. Right? And then the further stages after that, the questioning in the grave, right? And then ultimately, that saying, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make steadfast on Iman, the people of Iman, straight on the path. And that comes to play in all of these places until ultimately right into Jannah. And then ultimately into Jannat Firdaus, right? Forever, never to desire any place other. So the last word on this is, just as we mentioned, nobody's ever content here in this world. They always want some change. I mean, as good as it gets, you get bored after a while, right? So if we're going to be living for eternity, in paradise, so the question might come up, so maybe it'll get boring. I mean, after 1 billion years or so, I mean, we're still, that's something to think about. Don't worry about it. The world gets boring because maximum it stays the same way it is. So you get bored. And most likely it's going to devalue. You buy a brand new Mercedes, drive it around the block, you come home, and your wife doesn't like the color. Yeah, black, yeah, come on, we want red one. So you go back, I want to change, okay, no. Okay, it's 5,000 off the, sorry. 5 minutes, and it's, so everything in this world is decreasing in value. In Jannah, it goes on increasing. So every moment it's getting better and better and better and better, forever and ever and ever. I mean, unbelievable. But we have to believe it. It's true. Haqiqah. As a result of that, in this ayat, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ كَانَتْ لَهُمْ جَنَّاتُ الْفِرْدَوْسِ نُزُلًا. Nuzula is what you prepare for your guest. So Allah prepares this for His guests. Jannat Firdaus. خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا. They'll always be there. لَا يَبْغُونَ عَنَّا حِوَةً. They never want to leave from there. Why? Because it keeps on getting better and better and better and better. Forever and ever and ever. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us the people of Iman and Amal Salih, and let that be our final abode. And the modus operandi of that, we still have a lot to cover, so next time I come, inshallah, we'll try and look at all of that. In the meantime, I think you can figure out much of it on your own, So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all tawfiq. Whatever He has taught us, may He make it that ilm al-nafiya, which is that we're able to digest it, understand it, and implement it, and spread that khair in humanity. Ameen. Ameen. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت ونستغفرك ونتوب إليك. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Sheikh, where are you in Los Angeles? Where do you live in Los Angeles?
Actually, I don't live in Los Angeles. I live in the Bay now.
Oh, San
Yeah,
Francisco.
most of the time I'm in the Bay. Yeah, San Francisco. Union City to be exact.
Never been to the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Went to California, Los Angeles a couple of times.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in Los Angeles, but yeah.